I said, look, I'm a leader in the gay community. Hospitality is the ground zero of how the gay rights movement works. And especially, with the heyday of AIDS and everything else, I'm very comfortable coming to your house, would way prefer that to a restaurant. Why in the world anybody believes this thing called a Bible?
Welcome back to another episode of the Watchwell Podcast. Again, I am your host, Parker. And with me, I have a very special guest, Rosaria Butterfield.
Yeah, thank you, Parker.
Thanks for sitting down with me. I appreciate
it's
it.
my absolute pleasure.
Okay, so I go to church here.
Oh,
so I attend this church.
That's awesome.
I've actually known Pastor Stevens since high school.
Oh, that's great.
He's, he still has me on age. He's still old. He's an old man now.
Oh, yes, clearly. Young enough to be my son, but yes, clearly, Parker.
Hey, I didn't say you were. I said he was.
Well,
I guess logic would take
yeah. Yes.
But I wanted to get you on, and I just kind of wanted to hear your story from you because it seems to be fascinating, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Cool. So you want
to do it question wise? You shoot me questions and I answer
I'm
those?
okay if you just go.
I just go?
Yeah.
Okay. When people ask me my story, usually what they're asking is, how did I come to faith?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
okay.
that's right.
Well, I came to faith because I was a out lesbian feminist professor at Syracuse. I was I was a true believer before I was a true believer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really believed in LGBT rights and especially feminism and feminist advocacy. And at a certain point in my life as an intellectual, I'm a professor with a PhD in English, and I was tenured at Syracuse in feminist studies and queer theory and 19th century British. So I'm a Frankenstein scholar, actually. So,
okay.
But I finished my tenure book, and I just had a burning question, and that was basically, why do people like you hate the person I used to be? Now, that's kind of a loaded question, but I really meant it. What's up with Christians? Why don't they just let consenting adults alone? Do they not know we live in a pluralist society? I don't care that you're Christian. How about if you just don't care that I'm gay?
Right.
How could we, could we work that out? And so I think I'd written an article that got a lot of big press in the Syracuse Post-Standard, and it was about the Promise Keepers coming to town, and got lots of hate mail and fan mail, which in my life I always get hate mail and fan mail. I still do. It's all the same. It all feels just equally as painful, hate mail and fan mail. And then I get this letter from a local pastor. His name is Ken Smith. He was the pastor of the Syracuse Reformed Presbyterian Church, and quite frankly, I looked at the letter and I thought, this guy has the right pedigree. He's my unpaid research assistant. Apparently he wants to evangelize me, but I actually want to evangelize him.
That's right.
Or if not evangelize him, I want him to be my unpaid research assistant. So I
a little lab rat.
Yeah. So I called him back. We had a lovely conversation, and I, and we agreed for me to come to his house. He and his wife were going to have me over for dinner, and it was very sweet. Kind of at the last minute, he said, "Hey, are you uncomfortable with that? Like coming to a stranger's house, or would you rather we meet in a restaurant?" And I said, "Look, I'm a leader in the gay community. Hospitality is the ground zero of how the gay rights movement works, and especially with the heyday of AIDS and everything else. I'm very comfortable coming to your house. Would way prefer that to a restaurant." And then when he gave me his address, I thought, that's weird. It's right on my running route. I was a runner.
Oh, no way.
And it was so close to my house. And I thought, how funny. I've literally run past this house 5 times a week or something.
That's crazy.
It was crazy, but very sweet. And so what started as just what started is I went to dinner and they peppered me with a lot of questions, and I'm like, look, guys, I'm sorry. I know I'm like a lab rat. I'm sure I'm the first lesbian you guys have ever talked to, but I just don't have the energy for this. But I really have questions for you. And they're like, oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a Christian's like best dream ever is when a non-believer is like, hey, let's question everything. Yeah, let's do it.
Right. So I said, I'm working in this book project, and I need to read the Bible to do the the book project, and you're like, this is like, Ken's like, what?
It's like, that's the hardest part.
And I said, and I know that I don't understand it. I know that I don't understand. It's obviously not one narrative. It's 66 books, but my genuine question is, why do people like you? Why can't you just leave me alone? Like, why be evangelical?
Yeah.
And so Ken was amazing. I'm sure it was like almost a dream come true. You're like the out lesbian activist who's causing all this trouble at the university. Gift wrapped, right. And so the reason that he even had my article, that he even knew who I was to write to me, was one of the elders put my article on his desk at the church and said, Ken, we need to shut this woman up. She's trouble. She is real trouble at the university. And Ken's response was, oh, maybe Floy and I should have her for dinner.
The stark contrast of how do we deal with this problem?
Exactly. And I'm sure this elder, he's kind of a young guy. I mean, he went on to be my elder and a great friend of mine. Actually, his wife was a colleague of mine in the English department.
Okay.
So like, he knew he knew all my tricks. And I'm sure he was thinking, he's really old. He needs to retire. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so funny.
He has no idea. But I was genuinely serious, and so was Ken. And so that was the thing that was always so intriguing about our friendship was I'm not very sentimental. I've never been very sentimental, but I had genuine questions, and Ken was willing to sit down with me and really lay it out. Yeah. But he made it clear, in order to answer these questions, I'd need to read the Bible. I'm like, well, duh, I'm an English professor. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not like going to Promise Keepers rallies and saying, oh, excuse me, why are you here? So it was really sweet the way the Lord worked that out, I have to say, because I am a reader. I don't like people yelling. I mean, I don't process information when it goes quickly and,
Yeah, you need to kind of digest it a little bit. How did you, when you got to the dinner and you had all of these Christians asking you questions, you felt kind of bombarded?
No. I mean, because it wasn't. I only had Ken and Floy, and they were very sweet, and they were asking me questions about my childhood, which makes me very uncomfortable because I had a really it's just not for public consumption. I mean, like I knew I was talking to Christians, and I don't have a G-rated childhood,
right?
So I was very uncomfortable with it. But as soon as I asked, could we pivot? They were like, yeah, great, no big deal, and so they were very easy to talk to and very loving. But one of the things that was really shocking was like Ken Smith was such a man's man, and the only men I had dealt with in decades were gay. So you know what I mean? So it was just really funny. So like he pulls a chair out for me. I'm like, wait, where's my chair?
Like, chivalry's not dead.
Oh, that's right. He opens the door. I'm just like, what's this thing? And it was really sweet the way he was super sweet with his wife, and she was she was no like pushover or whatever stereotype I had of the evangelical wife. You couldn't pin it on Floy. So it was, I think, a night of demystifying stereotypes.
Oh, that's so good.
And just realizing, okay, I do have questions, and I have somebody who can help me answer those questions.
So would you say that your I guess how do I want to ask that? It's like you did seem like you had from your story, it sounds like you had this fundamental search for like what's real.
Yeah, what's true, actually. What's true.
What how many people in the LGBTQ community have that view? Because it's,
almost all of them.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, almost all of them. And I think that's the big stereotype too, is that and let me say, I haven't been in that movement for decades.
Yeah, for a really long time. That's fair. Yeah.
So it does seem to me that the current iteration of it is much more manipulated by ideology. My generation was much more driven by the AIDS virus and by feminist, the kind of the third wave of feminism, which was ideology, but it wasn't quite on the conveyor belt that it is now. Like, for example, you would never have a butch lesbian say, maybe I should, have a double mastectomy. Maybe I'm really a man. Like, that was just
No,
it just never, like,
yeah.
that the bottom hadn't fallen out of feminism
Okay.
in that way. So, and what I mean by that, I should say this, that the root of feminism, not theologically, theoretically, is that there is a difference between sex and gender, that biological
Yes,
sex
that's right, yeah.
is different from cultural gender. And all transgenderism is taking that to its logical extreme. There is no biological sex. It's all cultural gender. And so in some
It's
ways,
a construct and all this. Yeah.
And in some ways, the birth of transgenderism is the death of feminism.
Okay.
And that's why
it's so fascinating.
It is fascinating. So we didn't have quite that much ideological drive. And
You're right, because it eats itself.
it eats itself.
Yeah, because in order to be a feminist, you have to be, I guess, for lack of
You have to be a biological essentialist.
Oh, yeah, you have, because or else men eat women again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then it becomes pro man.
Exactly. Exactly.
We have Greg Moore, everybody. Yeah, he's all right. Hey. So okay, so what were the if you can remember, what were the first questions that you really wanted answered?
Right. Well, the first question I wanted answered was, why in the world anybody believes this thing called a Bible?
Okay.
Because I know enough to know that there's a lot of oral transmutation for it. And, I turned to Ken Smith and I said, I wouldn't trust your wife's chocolate chip cookie recipe given to me via oral history. Why should I trust something that I'm supposed to? And so,
like the telephone game.
Yeah, like the telephone game. Exactly. And so so he really was like, oh, that's a great question, Rosaria. And so he answered a lot of the I guess what you would say, the questions of textual authority and hermeneutics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might be, that's really weird, but I'm an English professor. That's just my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
like, I don't know. I don't know where other people
So
start.
it's like the providence of God is like meeting here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was like, no problem. And then we got through that. And then he said, okay, Rosaria, now you need to start reading the Bible for its actual narrative content. I'm like, okay, fine. And I started reading it, and I would ask him questions. He's like, Rosario, what kind of a reader are you? Like, don't you read to actually hear what the book says? Why are you telling me what you think the book says? Don't you? And I said, well,
that's a good question.
I said, well, I'm a reader response critic. He said, well, you can't be a reader response critic with the Bible. I'm like, well, what do you mean I can't be a reader response critic?
Yeah.
Why in the world not?
Don't tell me what I can and cannot do.
Exactly. And he said, well, actually, I have a lecture that answers that question. He said, I'm used to, and he said, and what I'd love to do, I was the director of undergraduate studies for the English department at that point. And he said, I'd like to come to your class and teach your students, because it is a hermeneutical question, and you could talk about reader response.
He's playing 4D chess.
Oh, yeah. And I looked at him. I said, I would never let you talk to my students.
Yeah. I need to protect. You can't proselytize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would never let you. I said, well, that's actually not true. I'd let you talk to one student. He said, well, which one? I said, well, me.
Oh.
He said, I'd love to do that. And I laughed. I said, you'd love to come and give me a lecture? He said, of course. So we scheduled a time.
That's so cool.
Where he came to my house. I still have the notes. In fact, in the book, 5 Lies of Our Anti-Christian Age, Ken was still alive at the time I was working on that book, and he gave me permission to publish his lecture and my responses to it.
That is so cool.
Because I had like my yellow legal page.
Yeah.
And I had Ken on one column, me on the other, and like I'd write down what he said, and I'd like,
like just red line it.
Exactly. So he did. We got through the lecture, and I'm like blowing steam out of my ears at this point. And the lecture was really, it went from creation, to the second coming of Jesus, and the New Jerusalem. So this was not some kind of scandalous lecture, but what was so offensive to me was it was such, it was a history of the world, and it was meta, like it was tight. There was no postmodernism. it was all wrapped up. Every detail had a place. It was so offensive to me. And I was thinking, why am I so offended by like meta history? Like what is going on?
Yeah, like why be offended at the creation of the United States?
Yeah,
like, something like that.
Yeah. Well, but yes, exactly. And so when he left, and he said, Rosaria, I'm getting the sense that this is like pushing lots of buttons for you, and I'll just leave you a copy of my lecture if that's easy. Like, yeah, leave me your lecture. That would be really helpful. And it's like, yeah, no problem. Okay, we'll see you next week, And he was super chill, like never worried about anything.
Cooler heads prevail.
Yeah. And I remember walking the dog that night thinking, Jesus says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus died for the sins of all the people that will repent and believe, for all the sins they have committed and will commit. Jesus rose again to help provide the power of the Holy Spirit that would allow a sinner to be a saint. God made me a woman, and women are made for men. Like I'm just like processing, like and everything.
Just like following the logic.
Like everything could be like an explosion.
Yeah.
And I'm walking the dog.
I bet that women made for men part was hard to swallow.
It was. Yeah, it was. And again, because all the men I knew were gay, so I'm just like what? And so I took a long walk at night with my dog. And this weird thought popped into my head. And, again, I don't know, I don't know if it was the curry tofu I had the night before or if it was, something else. But it just kind of popped in my head that if I actually believed this, life would go better for me.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And it was just like a quiet little sense, kind of, Rosaria, if you believe this, life would probably go better for you. And then I ended up really arguing, but I can't believe this because it has no place for pro-gay, it's the wrong worldview.
It's complete.
Yeah, it is. It's complete.
It's complete.
And that leaves me no wiggle room. But I thought it was interesting. And so I said to Ken, well, this thing popped into my head and and he said, well, why don't you start reading how about instead of reading the Bible like Rosaria would read the Bible, read it like Ken would read the Bible. And Ken was always about
suspend your disbelief and
union with Christ and with him. So he said every part of the body, every part of the Bible is about life in the body of Christ and walking with him and union with Christ. So what would happen if you just said to yourself, I'm going to try to read that, get in the head of Ken Foley Smith, and I'm like, well, okay, that's not bad. And so I did. I started to do this, and I have to say it was a very impactful thing. I mean, this idea that the Word made flesh, yoke is easy, burden is light. The verse in Hebrews 4 that the Word is a mirror. It discerns me. It cuts through me. It discerns through the thoughts and the intentions of my heart. That basically means the Bible knows me better than I know myself. Mm-hmm. So all of these things were very impactful. I skipped Romans 1. That was too creepy. Skipped all the gay stuff. Like, I don't want to hear that. But there was enough there. And so one night, so my partner and I, she was a professor of psychology, and we would always open our homes to do like political activist stuff, and so it was a normal Thursday night. And my transgender friend, and this was a biological man who lived as a woman and went by the name Jill. Cornered me in the kitchen and said, Rosaria, listen, you need to stop. This Bible reading is changing you, and I want to know what's going on. And so I sat down and I said, well, just a straight up, let me ask you a question. Like, it's the question I'm always asking my students. What if it's true? So what if this Bible is true and we are all in trouble? And then, Jill was like 6'5", plunks down in the chair, and and said, well, Rosaria, I was a Presbyterian minister for 15 years. I have a wife and 3 children out there. I know it's true. I'm pretty sure we all are in trouble. And if you want, I'll pray for you. I mean, I've prayed, but God didn't heal me. But if you want, I'll pray that God healed you. And I know it's like,
That's weird.
well, this
It's wild.
at last back in the day, this is what gay rights activists talked about in the kitchen. All right. And so I was immediately offended. A couple of things. Like, I don't need healing. I don't have cancer, bad
nothing
knees,
wrong with me.
acne. You know, like, gay is good. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And not even the Bible says I need healing. It says I need to repent of sin. And quite frankly, I don't like either of your offers. So, you know, basically,
I'm saying.
screw this. You know, just take it. You know, let's get back to that. You know, so I get back. And the next day, there were 2 boxes of books from seminary. And this transgender friend, Jill, you know, these were books from his days at seminary. And I learned 2 things in these books that were really important. One was what's called Jill's dead name. Okay, Matthew. And then something about looking at this strong, you know, male handwriting that made me rethink something about LGBT. And that's when all the blocks started to fall apart in my life. Because I had always said, my being a lesbian hurts no one. My friends being gay hurt no one. Jill being transgender hurts no one. But Jill is really Matthew, and somewhere out there is a abandoned wife and kids, and I'm a feminist, and now I can't unknow this. And somebody is hurt by this.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, and it was just sort of that was the beginning of the crack. And you know, once the Lord works that crack,
It just, it's hard to ignore.
It's hard to ignore. And I was really mad. And I found myself in the mornings, like, really looking forward to reading the Bible, and this was back in the day when everybody took like productivity classes, and I wasn't getting my writing done. And so my partner was like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you getting your work done? And I looked back on because you'd always track all of your time, kind of like, I don't know, like the way people track gluten these days or something, you know,
like a calorie tracker.
Yeah, exactly. Like time tracker. And I realized that I had spent every morning for weeks now, 2 hours in the morning, reading the Bible and praying. And I was not writing a word, so this had nothing to do with research. And I realized I was fascinated at the thought that there was a holy God who, through this word, was making a way to have a relationship with me. And I've never felt loved by that like that, ever. Like, ever. I don't even know.
It's like peaceful.
Well, and it's just like meaningful love.
Yeah.
Like meaningful love. It wasn't so peaceful because I could imagine.
Well, I guess
I can imagine all the ways my life was not going to go well, but
it
was definitely something that I wanted, and that's when I was like, okay, this Bible reading project is driving me crazy. I'm going to throw this Bible in the trash. I mean, what else do you do when you get too close to something? I'm going to go tell Ken and Floy Smith it was nice getting to know them. I never wanted to see them again. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I threw it away. I said, Ken, we're not talking anymore. We don't need to. I'm done with this project. I can't do it. It's like, I don't know. It's like this Bible's getting under my skin. So I can't do it. I'm just not going to do it. And Ken, it's not exactly like he was a stalker, but he became kind of a stalker. Like, he just wasn't going to let go of me.
Well, that's a good man. I want to be respectful of your time. So it's 2:59.
Okay.
So before we cut this short, I also wanted to say, like, in terms of like, it's really easy to slip into that trap of no one's being hurt.
Yeah,
right? No one's being hurt.
Nobody's being hurt.
But even at the fundamental, like the basics of like thou shalt not lie.
Yeah,
you're lying to yourself.
Right.
And you're an image bearer of God.
Right.
So that's why it's wrong to miss or to lie
And that was one of the next things that happened because I threw the project away, but Ken and Floy Smith stayed connected. And so I went back to reading the Bible, and I would ask them questions like, well, how would a woman like me become a godly woman? Like, just, right, kind of like,
what's the path?
You know, can I be a lesbian Christian? You know, like, how do you do this? And And the women in the church were wonderful. I mean, I'll tell you, they would just, well, have you prayed? I remember Becky, like, I don't know, Rosaria, have you ever prayed about it? Have you ever just asked the Lord, make me a godly woman? Like, ooh, that sounds like a scary
They're all like,
prayer.
that's what we're doing.
Exactly. That's exactly. They're like, what do you think we do every day? Do you think we naturally want to get up and take care of all these crazy kids?
That's right.
I know. There isn't anything in us that wants to do this. So, okay. So,
yeah.
So but almost immediately, what was clear to me about being a Christian was that a Christian woman, that there is something ontological about God making me a woman, and it wasn't socially constructed as I kept saying it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, I want to be respectful of your time.
You're so kind. Thank you
so much for sitting down with me.
Absolutely.
Real quick, for Christians engaging that community.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice that you would give them? And then also for people in that community,
right,
being engaged by Christians, what would you want them to hear?
Okay. One piece of advice is you never engage a community. You engage an individual.
Oh, that's so good.
So I don't even know how you would engage a community, but don't. Engage people as people. That's very much what Ken and Floyd Smith did to me. They cared for my soul. And a question that Ken would often ask people, myself included, is how does it go with your soul? And so don't engage the community, and don't make presumptions about why somebody says they're gay, lesbian, or trans. Let them tell you their story.
That's good.
Oh, you say you're gay. Why? Yeah. And I would say,
and why is it your identity?
Yeah, well, I think for most people of this generation, anything you feel strongly is your identity.
Yeah, that's right.
So I wouldn't, but I would say there's no such thing as a gay person. You can have a gay movement, you can have a gay Kroger, you can have a lot of gay, kind of iconography and things, but a person is an image bearer of a holy God, made male or female. And what LGBTQ is sin.
That's right.
So I would just, you would deny, you need to get that out of your system, because it's true. If you think that this is a special kind of person, you need to have a special mission for this special community, kind of like, the Ninevites or something, or then it's a no-go. Like there's no hope, right? But there's great hope in the gospel.
Amen.
And we all have to have a change of affection. It's not just people who are stuck in the sin of homosexuality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sin is sin.
Sin is sin.
Lying, cheating, stealing, homosexuality. It's
deeds of the flesh.
Yeah.
I would say a really good book to read is by Jared Moore, and it's called The Lust of the Flesh.
Okay. I've heard of this book.
Thinking biblically about sexual orientation.
Okay.
So get that book. It's a really good book.
And then for LGBTQ or people who would identify, what would you want to tell them?
I don't know. What I would just say is, why do you think people need to affirm? Like, can we make a distinction between acceptance and approval? And if not, why not? So, like, in most normal situations, like if a child in a public school is new to the public school and he's a Muslim and he comes into the second grade, everybody says, hi Allah, or like, hi Muhammad.
Yeah.
They don't say, Allah is Lord. They say, they don't say, they don't do a Muslim prayer for him. They're just like, hey, welcome, your cubby's over there. Why does the gay rights movement think that's not enough?
That's a good point.
Why do I need to have a flag on my screen? Why do I need to, why isn't it enough just to say, like, oh, hey, welcome, have a seat?
Yeah,
So,
that is a good point.
Why do you feel like I have to affirm you in order to accept you?
Yeah,
So that would be my
or to
question.
force people to celebrate you.
Yeah. Why can't we just just get to know each other?
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you. That was so fun.
You.
Guys, check out, where can they find you? Website?
Well, in my home in Durham, North Carolina, in my kitchen with my apron
don't
on.
tell people your address. Don't tell them. Please don't do that. Not on my podcast.
I'm not going to do it. No.
Social security numbers and addresses.
Oh, yeah,
we're gonna keep that offline.
But what I mean is I'm mostly kind of a homebody, but I do have a website, rosariabutterfield.com.
Books.
Yeah, books are on Amazon or at my website.
I want people to more people to hear what you have to say.
No social media.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll check you next one, and don't forget, if you're gonna watch well.